The arrest of the King's brother in the past 24 hours is one of those shocking moments that will not easily be forgotten, especially in the age of the meme, nor by history either. The last time a British royal was arrested was Charles I in 1647, and the image of Andrew, head back, wide-eyed, lying low in the back of a car with a seemingly haunted or terrified expression has dominated the front pages of newspapers and online sites all around the world since it was captured by Phil Noble at Reuters on Thursday night when Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was released after his arrest on his 66th birthday. Investigations continue into allegations he passed on confidential government information to Jeffrey Epstein while he was acting as trade envoy. This is not in connection with Virginia Giuffre, the sexual abuse allegations, though there are 8 separate concurrent police investigations and inquiries ongoing in the UK right now. Andrew has previously denied wrongdoing. He hasn't commented since this arrest. President Trump has. This is what he had to say a short while ago.
I think it's a shame. I think it's very sad. I think it's so bad for the royal family. It's a very, very sad. To me, it's a very sad thing. When I see that, it's a very sad thing. To see it and to see what's going on with his brother, who's obviously coming to our country very soon, and he's a fantastic man, the king. So I think it's a very sad thing.
The long-time royal commentator and BBC presenter David Dimbleby described the moment like this, quote, "If the investigation is carried out properly, it's like lancing a boil," he said, "of a world that's been kept away from us, secret and with undue deference to the monarchy." Richard Fitzwilliams is a long-time British royal commentator and expert on the monarchy. Good evening, Richard. Welcome to France 24. Thanks for speaking to me tonight. You must have had an incredibly hectic few days. And let me quote King Charles, "The law must take its course." Why do you sense this action has not been taken by him before now? Why these questions are only starting to emerge?
Well, firstly, this does go back to 2011 when Andrew Mountbatten Windsor had to step down as special envoy for British trade because of his friendship with the deceased paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. And on that year, we also had the publication of the photograph of him, which we now know is genuine, with Virginia Giuffre, who tragically committed suicide last year. What we have at the moment is a situation whereby the royals have been on the back foot. They haven't known what's been coming from the Epstein files, and as a result, King Charles's statements have obviously appeared. I mean, when it comes to the law taking its course, I mean, that it states the obvious. The week before that, he'd said that obviously he'd give every help required to any police investigation. What you have at the moment is investigating him on the charge of misconduct in public office. This is over the decade. He was special envoy for British trade. What also is being, as you mentioned, a large number of other police forces are looking into the possibility of links between Epstein and reports that Epstein had women flown into Britain, that in fact there's this particular case, a woman was in fact flown in reportedly for suspend a night with Andrew at Royal Lodge and so forth. What we will wait and see as the police piece together the evidence and indeed take it to the Crown Prosecution Service if they so feel it's going to go or should go to court. What we'll see is, and what will develop, is the various charges against him, because there has been this drip, drip, drip of information, a variety of accusations that he tipped off Epstein on important issues when he was in Southeast Asia, when he was about investment opportunities in Helmand, Afghanistan, even the Royal Bank of Scotland. Now, that would be appalling enough. But of course, the allegations of sleaze, which he strongly denies, still haunt him and may in the future.
And if we think about these images, you call it a drip, 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 but these images in the past, 48 hours, unprecedented, and today unmarked police cars arriving outside Royal Lodge. A few hours ago, Richard, the search for information continuing, this 30-room mansion where Andrew Mountbatten Windsor used to live. What are the optics? To you, the news of the arrest, what is it doing to the reputation of the monarchy?
There's no question the optics are absolutely terrible. I mean, the photograph of him when he was 66 yesterday in the back of that car spoke for a lot of it. I mean, the optics with Andrew always or almost always are absolutely terrible. We've seen recent images of him on all fours with a woman looking like somebody young, but the image is redacted, or there was an image of him lying on the laps of 5 women. The images have been redacted and so forth. As I say, a huge amount of sleaze and also serious charges as to the fact that he exploited, I think that this is the general feeling, he exploited his public position for private gain, and so did his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, whose emails to the paedophile Epstein is almost as though she treated him as a member of an extended family. If it would appear he paid off quite a number of her debts. Some of that is clear. A lot of things are yet to come out.
I want to get to that point in a minute. It's a very good point you raised, Richard. I want to talk about Andrew Lowney's book entitled. He spent 4 years analysing the life and livelihoods of the former Duke and Duchess of York. He was on the programme last week and he sets it out. The prelude to the book is there's a headline on every page. And there is, if you read it, there are more than a dozen separate allegations against Andrew, some of them quite separate to the Epstein files as well, involving claims of personal profiteering over his profession. Allegations not proven, but allegations that haven't had to be answered by the royal family. And to that I ask what you make of how the royals have been handling these wider claims and the need, the calls for greater transparency.
The calls for greater transparency in institution, which I believe is very valuable. The royal family is a symbol of national unity. It's above politics, and they're the issues of charitable issues, and also the matter of soft power, where it punches or enables Britain to punch somewhat above its weight. So far as what individual members knew about what was reportedly going on with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, I mean, nothing has been proven about this. We do know, however, that the King has said that if the police want questions to be answered, he will do so. The royal family has a reputation of being somewhat secretive on issues, whether it's finance or whether it's the way some of the duchies and so forth are run. But my feeling is that with the apocalyptic headlines, I feel the institution will continue, but it will undoubtedly be changed. This is Prince William's task, of course, when he becomes king, and then his children after him. The monarchy goes back 1,000 years. Now, they may find a great deal that could be done better, or indeed things that are embarrassing. We'll have to wait in the coming weeks and months, and this is the challenge for the royals, that they'll have to behave, as it were, business as usual, with the feeling or the knowledge that at the end of this there may be a very nasty court case, and it would be undoubtedly very embarrassing. My feeling is the monarchy will survive, but there will be considerable change over a period.
Another issue, and you touched upon it a moment ago, but just to look at it deeper, it's the record of the Queen, unblemished when she died, Elizabeth II. There are questions on the Queen's accountability to be asked, aren't there, though, Richard? And I ask this because you look at Andrew Lowney's book, it's reported that some of the reported 12 million that was paid to Virginia Giuffre in a settlement of the case, that's gone unanswered, hasn't it? That the royal family hasn't commented on the questions that have been put to them in the past, and therefore it doesn't that get to the heart of this transparency issue, that this is potentially taxpayers' money, and yet there is a wall?
We have no knowledge that it was taxpayers' money that was used. We do know that 12 million was paid by Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to settle a court case brought by Virginia Roberts Giuffre in 2022. I would point out that of the civil cases, which was what it was, almost every one, some 96-97%, are in point of fact settled. This was paid, and there was no illegal payment. It was done, however, without liability, and so the royals had the right to do it. The facts are, however, there's no question that he has been anything but transparent, and indeed, if you take what he said at Newsnight in that car crash interview, which has become infamous, the way he's lied and the way also his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson has lied has been absolutely deplorable.
Yes, every day this story changes, that particular interview becomes a legacy that is looked at in a completely different way, isn't it? And it takes us to this so-called invisibility line of the press. And I wonder to what extent you've witnessed that in the past. And for those who are watching internationally and wondering what I mean, this is basically a question about whether it's allowed a culture that has potentially allowed for potential immunity and whether that needs to be looked at. This is the idea of deference, that you don't ask challenging questions in certain situations so that you get royal exposure for your newspaper, for your broadcast, and covering certain events in which others in any public office are not entitled to.
This is the royal rota that you're referring to. I think that there is, one has to bear something in mind here. What we're talking about with the British royal family is probably, I would say, with the American presidency, but that changes, it's the world's most high-profile institution. Therefore, the media interest, and especially in the age online and the net and so forth, news every few seconds, the interest is extraordinary. When you are or have a profile of that level, if your news is good, the jubilees and the celebrations and charitable work and so forth, you do extremely well. If, on the other hand, as has happened, there's a crisis, which is what it is, the pressures are enormous. So to what extent, as far as the press is concerned, it's a curious bargain because they get a certain amount of information, and you will always get that, I think, with a lot of institutions that rule. Remember, there are other royal families, and they all have different relationships with the media. But this is special, and what happens will, as I say, I think that we will get change. I don't think that we're going to have something absolutely seismic, but I don't know what's going to come out, as the royal family don't, hence the problems in responding, which you mentioned. Yes. So I think that alterations, but on a long-term basis, well, we'll have to see what happens. It's not going to be nice. Far from it.
Very interesting. Well, David Dimbleby, as you know, the seasoned, long-time BBC heavyweight presenter and royal commentator, talking about a conspiracy in the past, the fact that these big events, coronations and things like that, where you have to agree to certain rules, and maybe that within the royal rota has to change. Briefly, has it changed the way you look at the monarchy? What you would like to see in terms of a relationship with the public in future?
So far as I'm concerned, I would say that most institutions, a lot of families have rotten apples. I would believe, from what I have seen so far, that Andrew was simply uniquely abysmal, that he and his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson were there was a symbol of entitlement and greed. Somebody like Queen Elizabeth was an exemplar of duty. She did unquestionably have an affection for Andrew, which is now extremely embarrassing. I think she believed he was somewhat backward, which seems to me an explanation of some things, but certainly not that's satisfactory. It does seem to me that the monarchy has a very significant part in Britain today. I say that specifically not because they're not other royal families, but they're not like this one. They don't have coronations, for example, usually, and so forth. So what we've got, I think, in the future is something that, well, it's some 60% in YouGov in the last week. If you look at our two major political parties, they're under 20%. So there's still a residue of support. The job of the monarchy is firstly to win back the young voters or young supporters that it's lost, and they have a lot of that over the Harry and Meghan's rift with the royals. And secondly, how they, in the weeks and months to come, deal with this crisis.
Richard, great to talk to you tonight. We're going to discuss this on The World This Week tonight with a number of journalists, including myself, who've interviewed the royals in the past and offer stories, and also on this invisible line and the royal crisis. Richard Fitzwilliams, for now, thank you so much. A long-time royal commentator, expert on the monarchy. Speak soon. Stay with us here on Worldview. We'll be back in just a moment.